picking stones. We are made of dreams and bones. Need a spot to call my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, I'll find my way in nature's chain. Tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. Gonna mulch it deep and low, gonna make it fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, please bless these seeds I sow. Please keep them safe below till the rain comes tumbling down. Plant your rows straight and long, season them with a prayer and song. Mother Earth will keep you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching from a tree has his hungry eyes on me. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief out there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. Gonna mulch it deep and low, gonna make it fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, please bless these seeds I sow. Please keep them safe below till the rain comes tumbling down.
So good morning. Please join me for a moment of prayer. Loving God, we thank you for this opportunity once again to sit, to hear, to listen, to evolve, to grow, to be, and to become. Allow the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart to find themselves holy and acceptable in thy sight. God, be with us now and bless the space between us, above us, below us, and around us. In the name of the Christ we pray. Amen. So we're going to do something slightly different today. Dixie, may I borrow that microphone? Awesome. John, can I get you to do me a favor? I have a question for those that are gathered. Do you mind walking this to each person that dares answer? All righty. This morning, we're starting a new series called Soul on Fire. And today, we get an opportunity to talk about what does it really mean to be a soul survivor. But we can't do that unless we talk about what is the soul. And here's the thing that I want you to know. There is no wrong answer. There's no right answer. There is only your answer. Because I believe that the soul is a myriad of things all at the same time. So if you're willing to engage and tell us what do you believe the soul is, please raise your hand and John will walk towards you with the mic so you can say that aloud, because I think that our thoughts about the soul are capable of adding to our very own life lessons. So who would like to begin for us this morning by telling us what they think the soul is? Thank you, Fern.
You don't have to stand up. He just made me do that. To me, the soul is the spiritual part of me that is the part I can always trust and believe in.
Thank you. Who else?
Come on, somebody else is going to be brave.
I'm glad you said no wrong answers. I just love this. Myself on different timelines, and if you want to know, you can ask me because I went to a class. Suzanne will know what I meant by that.
Timelines. Like that. Who else?
The differentiated part of spirit that I represent. Spirit, the whole spirit, I'm whatever it is, you want to call it personality, soul, individuality, whatever it is that I was separated for life whatever part that is connected or disconnected.
Thank you. One more. Oh, we got a couple. Got one back there and two down here.
Had a good aim there too. To me, the soul is the essence of who I am. It's that direct connection between me and my Creator, and therefore with all that is.
Thank you. We got two down front, John.
I feel it's what has kept me. The soul has kept me alive. That's my true living space.
Beautiful.
Anyone else?
My soul, I feel, is sort of, it comes from my heart, and it's just this energy and this essence of what I know to be true, that carries out from me, that sort of existed before me and will exist after me in sort of almost like echoes of the things that I value, that sort of stay in the world or go wherever. Sort of like part of it's something that is currently in my body, my soul, but when my body isn't here, my soul will still be here and still be in the world and with all the people I've known.
Beautiful.
The soul is that part of Great Spirit that is loaned to this body for a brief period of time.
Love it.
Anyone else? I have to cook on the grills.
Soul is cooking on the grill. I love it. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for indulging me and sharing your ideas of what the soul is. Because the soul is all of that and then some. My take on the soul is the part of me that existed before the world was even formed. The deepest parts of who we are, the core, the essence. I asked my friends and colleagues during this past couple of weeks, what is the soul? And I know they're probably going, what are you doing? Why do you keep asking us all this weird stuff? I was like, well, it's not about green eggs and ham this week, but the things that they told me were that very similar to what you all have said is the soul is the essence of who we are, the part of us that is eternal, the innermost being and the presence that is beyond form. It's our indwelling consciousness, the truth of who we are. The soul is the lure of our becoming. It is the fingerprint of God that is made physical in the world. So the idea of soul on fire and being a soul survivor, let me tell you where Soul on Fire came from. So I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana. And my mother had a rule, it applied only to me, and I was the youngest, that every Sunday morning I had to go to somebody's church. I don't know what that was about, but that's what I had to do. And so I grew up in a Baptist, a Methodist, a Pentecostal, a non-denominational existence, and I refer to that as, when people go, hey, Kathy, what's your spiritual background? I just go, oh, I'm Baptist Pentecostal. And there, in that, somewhere in there, I encountered this idea of being on fire for the Lord. Well, when you're a little kid, you can't talk to them about being on fire. My mom had a statement. We didn't get to go out to eat very much in that time. And my mother had some very key ideals about how children behave when they were in public. So somewhere across the restaurant from us, a child just started to weep and wail. I don't know what was going on over there. And my mother just kind of tapped the table, and she kind of went like this for me to lean in, and I was like, yes, ma'am. She said, only scream like that when you're on fire. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And so when we look at, how are we on fire every day? What does it mean? And I can't talk about fire without talking about the story that we find in the book of Exodus, the 3rd chapter, the first through about the 15th verses, where Moses was down in the valley tending Jethro's flock, and he was drawn up the mountain, and he encountered the burning bush. More often than that, you know, when we hear this story told, we hear the conversation when, at the end of it, when Moses says to the bush, you know, well, who do I tell them sent me? And the voice of God says, I am that I am. The thing that I find so fascinating inside of this story is that the bush was on fire, but it wasn't consumed. It wasn't doing harm. It wasn't doing any damage. We live here in Florida where, you know, a wildfire just break out in a heartbeat. But here was this controlled burn, simply there to light the way for Moses to get there. And I think that those things happen in our lives sometimes, and we either grant meaning to it or we ignore it because, you know, we're busy people. But this idea of something being on fire and not being consumed. So, soul on fire. A fire for us does a lot of things. It warms, it lights, it protects, it reduces, it defines, it refines. It does a lot of stuff. Fire is valuable in our society, in our world, and in our culture. So when we look at how that helps us, fire is a light on yonder hill. Fire within us, shut up in our bones, Jeremiah would say, it won't leave me alone. Fire is with and within us. So being a soul survivor means that we need something that warms, that lights, that protects, that reduces and refines. Here's the thing about being a survivor. The only way that anybody ever knows that you are a survivor, you have to tell them of the thing which you have survived. You have to tell that story. What did you survive? What have you overcome? What have you declared victory in the name of? Now, I want to tell you a story, again, about my mother. This whole series came to me a little more than a year ago. I went home to celebrate my sister's retirement after she had spent about 36 years in the public school system. I thought that warranted a trip back to Louisiana to have some fried chicken and some sweet tea. And so while I was there, I spent time in the house that I grew up in. And I tell you, if you ever want to discover something about yourself, return to the places from which you came. Because what was my room, it seemed huge when I was a teenager. I walked in that thing, I was like, man, I got shoeboxes bigger than this thing. But nonetheless, it is my room. So journey with me back. The year was 1975. I was 10 years old. And I had won the school, the city, and the parish Science and Social Studies fair. Now, my project came out of this. I'm a very, very picky eater. And my mom would leave me at home with my older sister. Now, my mom just was trying to get food in me. She didn't care, just as long as I would eat something. My sister was of another mind. She was, you're going to sit right there until you eat that. And so there are a few things in the diet in the South that change state if you don't eat it real quick. And one of those is grits. Now, I believe that grits and grace have some things in common. If you go out to eat and you order breakfast, I don't always see it on the menu and I don't know what happens in the kitchen, but grits just show up on the table wherever I am. So here's how grits played a role in my Science and Social Studies project. If you don't eat them fast enough, they solidify. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I made a map in the shape of the state of Louisiana, which looks like a boot. And because grits are textured, I figured out how to get that thing to not be flat, but it had peaks and valleys in it. And Louisiana is different from any other state in the Union because Louisiana has parishes and not counties. So there are 64. So I figured out how to look at the regions of the state based on the crops and agricultural production of these regions, and I used food coloring and some other household items to depict a 10-year, on basis of a 10-year model, the increase and the decline of these particular agricultural products in our state. Well, for whatever reason, the judges at everywhere I went, because I was 10 years old, I could go on and on about what grows in Louisiana soil. Well, this is because of my mother. We grew most of our fruit and our vegetables. So I understand the composition of soil. At 10 years old, I could read and understand the farmer's almanac. I could smell rain coming and give you about a 20-minute give or take window of when that rain was going to arrive where we were. So I had all of these things that I filtered into that process. So in winning the parish fair, I was excited because I got a chance to go to Baton Rouge to compete in the state fair. I thought this was huge. My mom, on the other hand, was not real thrilled about this thing because she's thinking to herself that she's getting ready to go off the farthest she has ever been away from home, not in the care of family. Jesus was about all she could say. Now, I didn't know any of this until about 20 years later. So as I got ready to go, my mom, she packed enough food for the bus ride down to Baton Rouge. She helped me pack. She gave me my walking around money and made sure that I understood how to exchange money for food and goods and services and souvenirs and such, which was apparently a big deal back in that day. Because I tell you, $25, you would have thought I was traveling with a little bit of Fort Knox in my bag. But I had $25, and pretty much she said, bring most of that back. So fast forward about 20 years, my mom had just made her transition, and my sisters and I, we were gathered because we were going to donate some of her things according to her wishes. So we're clearing out our closet, and I bumped into a side wall, and a board moved just a little bit more than it should. And there was just enough space for me to get my fingers in there, because I'm nosy like that. I want to know what's going on. So I pulled the board out, and here's this container that says for Kathy. And kind of a little scary, but I took it and I just slid it under the bed because I was like, I'll wait till I'm by myself so I could take a look at this. And later on that evening, I got up and I looked in the container. Here were like mementos and photos, a little bag that says, your first teeth. Then it's like, oh, that's so cool, it's so sweet. I got down under all of the things she had, pieces of fabric and ribbon from dresses she had made me. And then here was a bag, and it had these pieces of paper, little letters, and there was one that said, read this first. So I read it, and she was telling the story of how afraid she was for me to go off to this fair. And the reason that she was afraid is she knew that from the moment she held me for the very first time, that there was something about me that would discover a life beyond this place that we know as home. So she walked me to the school, because it was about a block from our house. Walked me there, she waved by. I was just as excited as could be. I was out of town without my mom, out in the big wide world. This was kind of cool. So I went to the fair. I won second place. They gave me a trophy about as tall as I was. I came home. I'm getting off the bus. I'm real excited, and I've got this big old trophy above my head. And my mom, she falls to her knees, and she grabs my face by putting her palms around, and she just looks like she was looking for something. The way she expressed it in her note is that she was looking for the very soul of me. Because her understanding of who I was to become was that when I went away, there was something that would always be out in the world, out in the universe, and that would never return to this place. So there was a part of her baby that never really came back home. And in her note, she talked about that fear. But what that is for me is that was a connection of my soul to something greater than I am. I became fascinated with life and cities and culture and language. Walter Cronkite taught me everything that I needed to know about the whole world beyond Shreveport, Louisiana, and my neighborhood. It was one of those communities that was tight-knit. They ensured that you were cared for. It was one of those communities where everybody could yell at you and everybody was an extension of your parents and your family. Anybody could give you a whooping, as we call it down in the South. And so what had happened for me was that I connected with the universe. I connected with the divine beyond the four walls of our church. I connected with the very presence of spirit outside of that place that I knew as safe. But I never had any fear. I never had any worry. This idea, I share this story with you because there has to be a connection that allows you to realize, to know and understand and live what is true and truth for you. It doesn't always get dropped off at our doorstep. It doesn't always show up in a covered dish at our porch. It doesn't always call us and say, "Where have you been?" And it certainly does not flood our email boxes. Sometimes we have to be willing to get up from where we are and to go into all the places that our soul is saying, "Come, there's something over here just for you." The only way that the world will know that we are a survivor is if we tell them of the story of the places that we have been, the things that we have seen, the songs that we have sang, and the very presence of God that we have experienced in all of these moments. There's this idea in our culture now about fake news. Well, any story that I don't tell has a potential about me to be fake news. But if you ever want to write the story, tell your own story. Tell your own truth. This is how we become soul survivors. Because we speak of places that may be no more, of a time that has long been gone. I believe that the soul to be the core of the very center of who we are, the part that the world will never know or understand unless we show them. Unless there's a songwriter that says that they will know that we are Christians by our love. The world is seeking to know more light, to know more truth, to know more grace, to know more peace, but it will not happen if we, the faithful, choose to be silent. And I tell you, if I have ever been silent in my life, today I choose to be silent no more. I remember a commercial growing up as a kid that posed a profound question. The question was, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? It was followed by the wise old owl who then took a bite and he remarked, "The world may never know." The same is true for us. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes light and love for the very center of our being to be seen, to be felt, to be experienced in this world. And unless we are willing, the world may never know. Being a soul survivor, nobody ever knows unless we tell them. They never know what we survived. They never know what changed, what has awakened within us, what has loved us into this deeper understanding of ourselves and our purpose. This is our story to tell. So it is my hope that as we go from this place, that whatever stories of survival we tell, that the world will come to know what is well with our soul. I remember every morning of much of my life, I can remember my mom in the kitchen and she's getting ready to cook, and she would just start to whisper, and she would say, "When peace like a river attendeth my soul, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. You see, the world will never know unless we tell them that it is well with our soul. You see, we know our truth. We know our story. We know all the things that have encountered us, that have shifted us, that have uplifted us. But here's the thing. No matter what it was, it is no more. Because we are here now. And whatever it is well with our soul. I hope that you all will join me. I'm going to hang out during the barbecue because I cannot pass up a barbecue. And we're going to chat and chew on this topic because your presence, your stories, they are important to me. And I hope that you'll be here with us next week when we look at the idea in the same series of Soul on Fire. Next week, we'll be engaging the idea of let your life speak. And we're going to go back to the story of Moses and the burning bush because there was some speaking going on. And we want to look at what does it mean when we allow our lives to speak for us, to us, through us, and as us. It is well with my soul, and I trust that it is well with yours. Amen, and so it is.